Hi, my name is Eli Omener. About a year ago, I put in an article in Ar Yisrael explaining Hilchos Erevin, according to Alter Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek, and the Rebbe, where I explain how all of our cities are not Rishus Harabim, even if you don't want to rely on the Shita of Rashi, which requires 600,000 people on every street in order to make it a Rishus Harabim. And our cities, our big cities, are not Rishus Harabim even without that, since they are not straight, and because they are Amim Merubal Aparot. I put this in Ar Yisrael because Rabbi Berl Levin's original article he posted in Ar Yisrael, where he tries to bring out over there that all of our cities are Rishus Harabim, any city that has 600,000 people, and he tries to put this on Alter Rebbe and Tzemach Tzedek. So I went ahead and I showed that it is incorrect, and I also went to Harav Tziner to get smicha on this topic, make sure that I'm not making any mistakes, and he gave me smicha and erevin. I'll give in a minute. Recently, Rabbi Berl Levin from the library, he put out a booklet where he's, for his grandson's bar mitzvah, where he's supposedly, according to his Akdama, that somebody wrote about Erevin and he went and relearned, and now he's coming to bring the truth of the Alter Rebbe and to correct everything to the right way. Well, in reality, in here he basically repeats all the same stuff that I already shlugged him up on in Ar Yisrael. And it's not only me. About 8 years ago in Ar Yisrael, Rabbi Mordechai Farkash showed him that he was wrong in these things, and he continues in his way. Now, the reason why he went and put this 28-page kuntres, not in Ar Yisrael, which is where I wrote and showed how he was wrong, was because in this kuntres that he put out, he basically does a very creative job. He's a really good writer, and he goes ahead to distort all the words of the Alter Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek, and he wouldn't want that to be in front of a learned audience that actually knows Hilchos Erevin, and will see his distortions, and there I would be able to respond and show that to the crowd. So instead, he tried to circumvent that and give it out to his son bar mitzvah, at all the shuls, on the websites, on the WhatsApp. And as you'll see here, I put on the board just a little demonstration of some of the stuff he just tries to distort from the Alter Rebbe. He basically takes different opinions that others came up with in Hilchos Erevin, and he tries to address it in the Alter Rebbe. However, the Alter Rebbe says the opposite. So he just takes the words, and for his various reasons, because he decided he has a great question. For instance, the word Oivrin means you're going over that street that the Alter Rebbe is referring to. He says it must mean, since it's impossible, it must mean Sholtim. Sholtim means that people have the right to go there, because it can't mean that they're going on one street. Then he has another problem. The Alter Rebbe writes clearly that if you don't have 600,000 people actually walking through a mavui, which is a street, it cannot be Rishus Harabim. That's talking about a mavui there that has all the other conditions of Rishus Harabim. So since he already established that it's impossible for 600,000 people to go through one street, so obviously mavui must mean ir. Never mind, there's tens of Rishonim who say this, and Achronim, not only the Alter Rebbe, but he decided he knows better. And in the near future, I will give out a kuntres where I show you that not only did he distort the Alter Rebbe and Tzemach Tzedek, that all the stuff he's bringing is really asserted to practically all the Rishonim and Achronim. Then he has another problem. The Alter Rebbe writes, the Oisoi Derech. He's talking about the street that is straight from one end of the city to the other end of the city. There are only two walls, and the Rabbim are going through it. So he's saying that's the Rishus Harabim, but he writes, that this way in the city, this street, which he was originally talking about a platya, but now it has two walls, so it wouldn't be together of a platya, had all the din of Rishus Harabim, and nothing else in the city does. So he has to say that obviously must mean the whole city. Then, this is actually a funny one. Originally, before I published my article on Ar Yisrael, I went to his library to discuss it with him and see, if I could get him to just fix the mistakes that he made. And while I was there, I explained to him all the different issues. Number one, that Shishim Riba Boikim means on a street, not on a city, is clear from the Alter Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek. and the Rebbe, and I explained to him how mefulish means straight, like the Tzemach Tzedek and like the Alter Rebbe writes. And I explained to him that we have the mechitzas abatim from 4 sides, so there's really nothing to talk about. So the first thing he tried to answer to me was that obviously if it has a pirza, which is a break within the mechitzas of 16 amos, it obviously is no good because that's Minat Torah. So I responded to him, excuse me, that's not Minat Torah, and I showed him in the Alter Rebbe how it's clearly not Minat Torah. But he said this Alter Rebbe is very difficult. So we're going to have to find another way to explain it because all the Rishonim say the opposite. So I told him with all due respect, as far as I know there are 6 Rishonim that say this, and they all say that's the Rabbanon. You have the Eshkol, you have the Ashlama, you have the Ritva, you have the Tosas Rosh, you have Tosas Rabbeinu Peretz, you have the Meiri, and you have Tosas Davav. So you actually have 7 here. And I said, but why do we have to go through it? The Tzemach Tzedek himself quotes the Ritva, and he says, the Kol Sheyesh L'Alma, the Chol Zavis, as long as you have an Alma Al-Alma, which are the possibilities in every corner, Loi Tifsel V'Shum Pirtz V'Olam, no matter how big the gaps are, Minat Torah, it will never be considered, okay, Minat Torah, that the Mechitzas are no good. So he says, the Tzemach Tzedek says no such thing. So I came prepared, I pulled out some of my documents with me, and I showed him where the Tzemach Tzedek says it. He looks at it for a few minutes, he scrutinizes it, tries to see if there's something that he could explain away or distort, and then he tells me, you have an agenda, gay fife, and I won't talk to you. That was pretty much the end of my conversation, but sarcastically I told him, maybe you could say that B'Shum Pirtz V'Olam, and any gap, no matter how big, means 16 amas till 16. And shockingly enough, in his new response, he brings down the Ritva, the name of the Tzemach Tzedek, and he says that obviously when he says B'Shum Pirtz V'Olam, he must mean until 16 amos. As usual, he has no proof for any of this, and there's not one, even the people that were anti-Erev and have all different lumdis and different reasons why it can't be good, they're passing like different paskim, no one in their right mind would ever try to say that Mishum Pirtz V'Olam means until 16 amos. So this is why he went and put this out to the public, because according to the Alter Rebbe and Tzemach Tzedek and the Rebbe, it's crystal clear that we don't have a Rishus Rabim, and he wants to make the issue gray, like it's a complicated argument, and obviously the senior chief librarian knows more than me, simple guy. So I'm going to give you guys here just a quick, simple breakdown about what he's distorting and what are the reasons, and hopefully in the future I will do some more videos where I explain stuff in more depth. So there are 4 reasons, 4 tnoim, in order for a place to be a Rishus Rabim. It starts off with, it has to be straight from one Rishus Rabim to the other. It cannot have a roof, it cannot be Mekoida. It has to be at least Tes Zayin Amos wide, even though when in the further videos it could be narrower in certain situations like the Alter Rebbe Paskins. And it has to have the Rabbim boikim through it. The public has to all come through it. Now, in what do we consider Rabbim, whether it's 600,000 people, or whether it's however many people it is that are coming through from one Rishus Rabim to the other and using it as a shortcut, that is a Machlekes Rishonim, and that is what the Alter Rebbe Paskins, that we do need 600,000. However, there is some debate whether on this T'nai, whether if you have an Erev that's only dependent on Shishim Ribui, whether there's place for a Yerushalayim to be Machmer. From the Alter Rebbe himself, as Reb Chaim Noah brings, he doesn't say Yerushalayim should be Machmer. At the very least, all the times in the Kuntas Achron, he definitely doesn't say that, even though in the Pinim, you have in the parentheses Yerushalayim Yachmer. Reb Chaim Noah said it's not the Alter Rebbe. That we could debate in a future video when I go more into that. The Tzemach Tzedek clearly writes that a Yerushalayim should be Machmer if an Erev is dependent on Shishim Ribui. So, we have all those 4 tonight. And the idea of what we need to be connected to, it starts off really from the Brisa. The Gemara says in Davav, Ezer Rishus Rabim, Sratia, Platia, Mevoyis and Mefulashim. Sratia is a highway, Platia is a marketplace, and Mevoyis and Mefulashim, the streets that are connected from one to the other. And that's what all the Mefarshim explain. The Mefulish means Mechoven, it needs to be straight alongside. comes to spare 11 on this Kedarkai, and he says, even though the Gemara says that we have 3 Rishus Rabbins, Bora Beinu Mefarish, that we have 4 Rishus Rabbins, that we have another one. He misunderstood what the word Rechayvis means, as I explained in my article. Rechayvis means a Platya, Tzemach Tzedek writes this, the Tzien writes this, the Ritzvah writes this, and there's almost no reputable source out there. And all the Chuvas, when they bring down what the Shulchan Aruch meant, Rechayvis means a Platya. But he decided that it doesn't, and he brings the Raya somewhere that Alter Rebbe is explaining something different. Alter Rebbe is just quoting the Shulchan Aruch and the Tur. There is nothing there different from him, and no one ever learned it this way. And in my article you can see that it's clearly not the case. So basically the inherent Rishus Rabbin, the Rishus Rabbin that's on its own, like a Srafia, which is a highway, other than Shishim Riboy, it doesn't really need any other time, because it's obviously going to be, a highway is usually 10 amos wide, and you don't really have any roofs over there, and it doesn't need to be straight. It just needs to have the Shishim Riboy. Versus a street, the virtue of how it becomes a Rishus Rabbin is when it's connected from both ends to the other in a straight fashion. That way the people coming from the highway go walk across it straight and use it as a shortcut, and the street doesn't have mechitzas that stop them. Then it could become a Rishus Rabbin and get overtaken by the Rishus Rabbin. And a Platya is a Rishus Rabbin Mitzad Atzmai as well, as the Tzemach Tzedek learns. A Platya that doesn't have mechitzas, at least 2 mechitzas, is a Rishus Rabbin Mitzad Atzmai. It does not need to be straight, according to the Tzemach Tzedek and Beis Ephraim and others, even though in the Rishonim it's a machlokes. So it's a Rishus Rabbin Mitzad Atzmai. Therefore, a mavu, if it's mefolish also to a Platya, which is a marketplace, and to a Srati, which is a highway, which are both Rishus Rabbins, as long as that part's straight, going through and through. The Rabbim are coming alongside it, is a Rishus Rabbin. Today we don't really have marketplaces outside like we used to in any of our cities, and either way we have walls along both sides. I mean, in many cases we have 4 walls, but at least we have 2. And once a Mavli has 2 walls, once a Platya has a marketplace, has 2 walls, it becomes like a regular street that needs to be connected to another Rishus Rabbin. So came along berl 11, and he decided that the din of Mechovin, the fact that it needs to be straight, is only when it's in an Ir Mukav Chayma. Where does he get that from? He brings it in the beginning. It says, Ezer Rishus Rabbin, Rechayvis Shvakis. And when it talks about a Platya that has no walls, it doesn't say that it needs to be straight. Only when it has a wall does it say it needs to be straight. So first of all, he's missing a fundamental thing. This idea that he said that it only has to have walls. The Alter Rebbe only said this when he was talking about a Platya, which doesn't have to be straight according to the Tzemach Tzedek. And when he talks about a Mavui that has to be straight, he never says any condition about having walls or Irmok of Chaim or anything along those lines. Even though by Platya, it doesn't either need to be the city. The streets have to have walls. The other condition that he comes to argue on are the mechitzas. He says that even though you have 4 mechitzas abatim from 4 sides, like if you look, for instance, as an example, you have in the Crown Heights area, you have Atlantic Avenue, all the walls of the homes are one of your walls, and you have Flatbush Avenue, actually not Flatbush, Washington Avenue, you have all the walls of the homes, you have Clarkson, and you have like Buffalo, those are all your walls. And Al Derech you have further, you have 4 walls, they're mostly closed. He said that since it has a pirza, 10 zainamas, obviously it can't be a Rishus Rabbin. However, this is quite ridiculous. There's nobody that has such an opinion, assuming you pass in like the Chachamim, which is how the Alter Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek paskin, and about 43 other Achronim. There's only 2 Achronim, if I recall correctly, that don't paskin that way. According to all of them, it's crystal clear that there's no such a thing as a pirza tezayin. Pirzas are the Yud, where you give alamas of Shlish, those are din pirzas, and those are din Rabbanon. The only question is whether Asur Rabbim will vatli mechitza, and we paskin that it doesn't. And but he brings us as a complete certainty. Now he has a little bit of a problem that the Tzemach Tzedek explicitly has a tshuva that writes that even though you have 2 Rishus Rabbins of Tes Zayin Alma wide going through this Platya, doesn't matter because Asur Rabbim vatli mechitza, and Atayda is not an issue. So since he has an issue with this, he doesn't know what to do with this tshuva. Kedarkai, he says, this was the Havamin of the Tzemach Tzedek, and he was Chayzer. This is kind of what he does. Like all these words, he decides they mean something else. You have a clear Tzemach Tshuva, the Tzemach Tzedek doesn't work. He tries to bring a stira from Chedushei Hashas, which, as you'll see in my article, is not even a stira. But even if it was, the tshuva is always going to be stronger than a pirush. And never mind that, besides for this tshuva that he brings, there are other tshuvas where he writes that there's no problem with the pirza. And even more so, at the end of Chedushei Hashas, after the place where he decided there's a contradiction, Tzemach Tzedek writes explicitly in the name of the Alter Rebbe that no matter, the same way Yud Gimel Amos Shlish is the width of Rishus Rabbim in certain cases when it's Miskatzev B'Ktsasai, and nevertheless the Alter Rebbe says Lo Yasir Rabbim. Therefore, even when there's Tesai in Amos, it wouldn't make a difference. Lo Yasir Rabbim V'Alter Mechitza, and it helps. So that's how he goes after the Mechitzas. How he goes after Shishim Riboy, he makes a very simple calculation. It's impossible for 600,000 people to go through a place that's 16 amas wide. So originally he decided that each person is about 2 amas wide. After I went and spoke about it in the shul, where I was giving the share, he changed it that each person is 1 amma wide, and he makes a calculation that each step you take is a second, even though if you look in the Gemara and Psachim, it's very clear that you could do a step in less than half a second. If you do a standard Google search, you'll see that the average step is about a little bit under a half a second. So even if you go with his width that everyone's 1 amma wide, which is true for Americans, but according to the Gemara, we're more of 3/4 of an amma wide each person, Gemara and Sukkah. There's clearly no problem. And according to that math, if you look at it a little bit less than a half a second of a step, 600,000 people will take about 4.5 hours to go through. But that doesn't stop him. He decided it's impossible. Therefore, the fact that the Alter Rebbe says it has to go through a street, the fact that the Tzemach Tzedek says so, the fact that the Rebbe says so, none of that matters. He knows better. He brings the Sikha of the Rebbe where he's talking about the Parshas Noach, different dinim of Sheva Mitzvahs, and he brings an example over there that just because it says in Rishus Rabbim it doesn't mean that it's impossible. If you do have 600,000 people, etc., and you have the other Tanoim of Rishus Rabbim, it would be Rishus Rabbim. Now, over there, the Rebbe says you have a shtot that has 600,000 people, Rishus Rabbim. The Rebbe doesn't say there that the shtot has to be more than at least as Zayin Amos wide. The Rebbe doesn't say that it can't have a roof. The Rebbe doesn't say that it can't have doors. He's not going into any of the details. He's merely bringing a point. And all the 12 letters that I brought to the Rebbe in my article, he's very clear that we don't have Rishus Rabbim and that Shishim Riboy have to be in the street. Not only that, I have an audio of the Rebbe which I put in my article and I quoted that he was learning it there and he's thinking to see him for his father, Levi Yitzchak, and he said that it goes on a street, that a gas that has Shishim Riboy. But none of this matters because he said it's impossible. And again, nothing that's written matters. He just changes the words. So in reality, when he says that he's coming to explain to the Alter Rebbe and Tzemach Tzedek, what he's really doing, he's taking the shittas of either Moshe, either Aaron Kotler, and he's trying to dress it into the Alter Rebbe, and he modifies the words to go around it. Now, Moshe never said, he quotes Moshe to say that Shishim Riboy means a city, but Moshe never said that. Moshe said that he wants to be mechadish a new thing. He's saying that it's new. It's not like it's in Shulchan Aruch. He writes it clearly. And that Shishim Riboy has to do with when you have 600,000 people at the same time throughout all the streets together. And that happens when you have 3 million people, which he learns that in the Midbar, total on Noshim Taf, you have 3 million people. So you have 3 million people together. Obviously, you have 600,000 people every day on the streets at the same time, and that's what he learned Shishim Riboy. That's the Chiddush of Moshe. But Moshe never said that Shishim Riboy was on the city alone, and just 600,000 people in the city makes it Rishus Rabbim. And interestingly enough, I forgot to mention this earlier, that when Moshe does learn, which he quotes, that the Tanai of Mechoven is dependent on being in a place that has Ir Mukuf Chayma, he explicitly writes that it's not according to the Alter Rebbe, and so does Aaron Kotler. They're both bringing the Mogen Avram, which the Alter Rebbe quotes word for word. He even sends you a footnote to the Mogen Avram, and they're moided that according to that, it can't be Rishus Rabbim. Why? Because the Mogen Avram writes that Mefulish is Mechuvan. He's explaining the word Mefulish. Every time you say Mefulish, you mean straight. Versus in other Paskim, they're trying to make a distinction that Mefulish and Mechuvin are two different things, which I'll explain in my article more in depth. But Saira Moshe, Sai, and Kotler are both admitting that this does not work according to the Alter Rebbe. Nevertheless, berl 11 probably understands better than that. So we have those four things. In short, I also wanted to bring to you, we have the Rebbe's letters. He was asked about Manhattan. He was clear Manhattan's not Rosh Hashanah. berl 11 decided it is Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbe's only halachic issue that he brought up at the end by Manhattan, why it's not kosher, was his exedim d'Rabbanan when you're using the ocean as a mechitza, Shema Yala Yam Sirtam. He had no other issues with it. He was clear in the tshuva actually. If you look over there, Rabbi Moskowitz Zatzal wrote to him, why are you saying that this gezerah of Shema Yala Yam Sirtam should apply, since it's not a Rosh Hashanah, so it's already only in this with Rabbanan, we don't have a gezerah on gezerah. And they responded, no. Even though it's not a Rosh Hashanah, there is a gezerah on a gezerah in this case, and it's clear in the Shulchan Aruch. The Alter Rebbe said, "Ein Rosh Hashanah Zman." Never mind, despite that, he brought down this gezerah. And there are certain cases where you have a gezerah on a gezerah. Now, a lot of the PR that people are bringing with you is like, I'm the person that's coming to say something new. I'm not the one that's coming to say something new. The Rebbe has already said this, and even they want to bring that our cities are different. berl 11 writes it, actually says it in his video, that we never had a city that had 600,000 people before to have this question. This is just not correct. You have in Varsha, where we had all Gedolei Yisrael before the war, including the Frierdiker Rebbe, they had an Erev, and on the side of Varsha there was 1.1 million people there. And there's a tshuva of Shlomo David Kahana about the Varsha Erev, which explains that the big cities are better than the small cities because nobody argues that it needs to be straight, and therefore in the big cities it's clear that we don't have the Rosh Hashanah, like the Magen Avraham brings down, like the Kesef Mishnah on the Rambam brings down, like the Beis Yosef brings down, and no one argued on it, versus on Shishim Riboy is an argument, so the big cities are better than the smaller cities. So it's documented. You have Reb Chaim Oizer, who was dealing in Paris and was under the assumption that Paris had 600,000 people going through one street, who wrote clearly that it's still a Rosh Hashanah min HaTorah because it had mechitzah surrounded even though there were many gaps that were a lot bigger than 16 amas, and he writes explicitly that all of that is only an issue with the Rabbanan. You have the Chazon Ish, you have the Marsham, you have the Divrei Malkiel, who wrote this about the Dessa Erev, which was under the assumption that they had 600,000, even though records today indicate that they had a little less. And he writes that we don't worry about making an Erev in the big cities for two reasons. One, in the big cities it's never straight, and two, the 600,000 people are never on the same street. They're spread apart on different streets. And you have Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, who made this statement about all the cities in Israel, that even if you don't want to go with the shitta that needs 600,000 people, it's still not, none of our cities are Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because they're not straight, and because you have Mechitzas Zabatim. You have Rabbi Yonason Steif, who writes explicitly, he was writing this about Manhattan, that since you have Mechitzas Zabatim from four sides, you could close it up according to anybody, the pictures of Tezayin don't matter. And he also writes here it needs to be straight, etc. You have many, many poskim, the list goes on. I'm trying to be brief and to the point. But the other thing I did want to thank Rabbi Levin for was that he was finally Maida, and over here he wrote pretty clearly that his idea, how he learns Erevin, that there's a Rosh Hashanah applies everywhere. He holds Yerushalayim as a Rosh Hashanah, he holds Bar Park as a Rosh Hashanah, Flatbush as a Rosh Hashanah, he holds Bnei Brak as a Rosh Hashanah, he holds Chicago as a Rosh Hashanah, California as a Rosh Hashanah, Melbourne as a Rosh Hashanah, etc. All these cities that have 600,000 people that have Erevin, you have a million of people using it, all their Rabbanim going with it, and he knows better. And so for that we thank him for making it crystal clear that what he's saying doesn't apply specifically to Karnites, even though someone that understood the dinim understood that in his first article, because what he's saying applies to anywhere. So that was a short piece I wanted to give you to explain the distortions that are going around. And in Mir Hashem soon I will do some more videos and explain things in more depth for people that are interested in learning Erevin for themselves. And I will also do another video going into the different rumors that they put out about the Rebbe that he didn't want Erevin. Thank you so much for your time. One more thing, I just wanted to make a quick summary that according to the Alter Rebbe and Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe and the Poskim I just mentioned, all of our cities, including Brooklyn, including Yerushalayim, including most of the big cities, are not Rosh Hashanah, even if you do not want to go with Shittas Rashi, which means you're not dependent on that Shitta, because the roads are not straight, and it's Oymim Merul Al Parotz. Therefore, even if you want to go with the Yeshel Hachmer that's brought down in some places, if you're relying on Shittas Rashi, in these big cities, it's not dependent on Shittas Rashi, and there is no need to be Machmer. Thank you so much again.